19 Republicans crossed the aisle to vote with Democrats to kill the procedural vote that would have begun debate as to whether FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, would be reauthorized. That is, of course, the law that allows the government to spy on American citizens without getting a warrant.
This was a direct rebuke of Speaker Mike Johnson, who supports FISA and vowed to bring the amendment to the floor for a vote. Let's listen to what he had to say.
When I was a member of the Judiciary, I saw all the abuses of the FBI, the terrible abuses over and over and over, the hundreds of thousands of abuses. And then when I became Speaker, I went to the SCIF and got the confidential briefing from sort of the other perspective on that to understand the necessity of Section 702 of FISA and how important it is for national security. And it gave me a different perspective. So I encourage all the members to go to the classified briefing and hear all that and see it so they can evaluate the situation for themselves. And I think some opinions have changed both ways, but that's part of the process. You got to be fully informed.
Now, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wants the Speaker ousted, called him out for going against Donald Trump, who has been critical of 702. Here's what she told reporters.
We're going to be working on this. We do not believe in warrantless spying on the American people, especially when this bill carves out the ability for Congress to be notified when a member of Congress is going to be looked at through the FISA court. That's completely unfair. The same thing should apply for the American people. But Mike Johnson doesn't have the trust of the conference, and that's become very clear.
Those who do support reauthorization of FISA maintain that it is critical to U.S. national security interests. Speaking to a group of lawyers Wednesday, FBI Director Christopher Wray defended the amendment, saying, quote, if there's no constitutional, legal, or compliance necessity for a warrant requirement, then Congress would be making a policy choice to require us to bind ourselves to intelligence in our holdings. Now, Tucker Carlson waded in and had this to say.
And that law allows the federal government to spy without a warrant on foreigners outside the borders of the country. And the idea is bad people are doing bad things against us. We need to know what they are, and we can't bother to go to a court to get a warrant every time we want to know. But it will never be used against American citizens. Well, of course, now that we know it has been at scale. But that law, FISA, has made it possible. So that law is now up for reauthorization in the House of Representatives. And amazingly, the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, has spent the last couple of weeks doing all he can to get that law reauthorized. In other words, to allow the federal agencies to continue to spy upon and punish people who disagree with him. In other words, Mike Johnson's own party, Republicans, Trump voters. Mike Johnson has been working to do that. And that effort failed today because members of Congress heard from their constituents or came to their senses, saw the truth in a dream. Whatever happened, they stopped Mike Johnson from doing that for the moment.
Back on Capitol Hill, Republicans will now have to work with Democrats to secure 2/3 needed to bring the bill to vote on to the floor under suspension. So this was a fascinating kind of win against the national security state. A lot of people were kvetching and moaning yesterday over this, but these 19 Republicans crossed the aisle to join with Democrats to kill this bill. Mike Johnson was asked about his kind of flip-flop on this issue. He says, well, I used to be against FISA, but when I became Speaker and I had these national security briefings, it's always national security briefings, then at that point I realized there was a necessity for 702. Edward Snowden wasn't having it. He quote tweeted that response from Mike Johnson and said, let's be serious. The NSA and FBI have plainly demonstrated that they're more than comfortable violating the law when they feel it binds too tightly. 278,000 times just for one authorization, 702. Millions and millions of times under others for Obama, and on a literally innumerable scale under Bush. We couldn't even count it. So let's not pretend that in the apocryphal ticking time bomb scenario of the Hollywood imagination that a series of agencies which have since their inception been characterized by a criminally casual respect for the Constitution would feel in the slightest way encumbered by something as parochial as the law, saying there's absolutely no national security justification for this at all.
Yeah, get a warrant. I mean, that's what the Bill of Rights says, and that's the way it's got to be. Very glad to see a win for the people demonized as fringe, but in fact, on this issue, it is strong, strident voices on the right and strong, strident voices on the left who have been most zealously guarding our civil liberties from government overreach. Obviously, team Trump's wants to kill FISA and is aware of how that was used to spy on a member of his own campaign, Carter Page, that brought this issue, I think, to the attention of many Republicans or conservative media, even though the vast majority of Republicans, and was the case here as well, always end up falling behind the national security state and rubber stamping Patriot Act renewal, FISA renewal, whatever it is, despite the pleas of the American people, including their own constituents, including many of their very conservative constituents, not to give the government more power to do this sort of thing. So now they had reformed FISA here, but not substantially, not enough. They were going to make it so that you needed a warrant in order to do this kind of surveillance of a member of Congress. Mm-hmm. So they were going to give themselves a special, like they're saying, okay, well, we'll have Bill of Rights protection. It should actually be the opposite. The members of Congress, government officials, should, if anyone's going to have less protection, it should be them, not the American citizens. So this is good. This is important. It's always, and Mike Johnson the Speaker deserves all the criticism he's going to get, because it ends up being the case. You know, you have a person who crusades on privacy or civil liberties or holding government accountable, then becomes the government, and then, you know, the national security state gets in your ear, and those kind of commitments go away. That happened to constitutional law scholar Barack Obama, who pledged to de-escalate some of the excesses of the security state in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Ended up not doing that, or at least not at all doing that to the degree that his supporters had been promised. And it is not at all a partisan thing, and it occurs with Republicans as well. Yeah,
as Snowden pointed out, millions of times under Obama, innumerable times under Bush, so much so that he couldn't even count it. And, you know, he's someone, he says he personally used 702 authority to while working at the NSA, and that's why he's speaking from that kind of personal experience. I do wonder what you make of, you alluded to the idea that simply, you know, once you become an insider, that's when national security folks get in your ear and you change your tune on these things. But unlike Barack Obama, there's a really direct threat to Mike Johnson's ability to be in this position at all because of taking a position like this on this issue. And I do wonder what you make of his choice to kind of double down here, saying in that clip, oh yeah, I totally was against this before, but now I'm for it now because reasons. You know, why take that stand when it is making him vulnerable within his party in this way?
Yeah, I don't know. And frankly, they tossed Kevin McCarthy for less at this point. The number of betrayals are just as numerous, and they got rid of Kevin McCarthy easily. It might be a personality thing. Kevin McCarthy had enemies. I know actually he said very recently, there was an article at The Hill about it, him entirely blaming his ouster on Matt Gaetz because he referred I think Kevin McCarthy substantiated the investigation or the second look into Matt Gaetz for that alleged sex trafficking type, you know, crossing state lines in a plane with a minor, that kind of matter, which infuriated Gaetz, and it was actually looked into, and that was the source of his enmity for Kevin McCarthy. So maybe it is all maybe it's personal, and maybe Mike Johnson has established more warmer relations, even with the members of his caucus who are not with him where he is now on policy. But I don't know. But I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene famously said that she had a good relationship with Kevin McCarthy, and she liked him personally, and that didn't end up mattering there. So
yeah, specifically this Kevin McCarthy quote from earlier this week, I think 2 days ago, said the only reason he is not speaker is because, quote, one person wanted me to stop an ethics complaint because he slept with a 17-year-old, end quote. So he's out here on the world stewing and bristling and giving some fire to the press. But I'm a little confused about this, because the posture of this has been very much that it is Thomas Massie and a handful of Republicans that have been really coming out loudly against this, and that is absolutely true. But interestingly, it was only 19 Republicans who joined with the Democrats to stop this. What do you make of that?
So that is true, and fair enough. Now, I have in this ABC News article I read, the ABC News says that every Democrat also voted against this procedural vote, a common practice in the House when the minority party votes against the procedural votes of the majority. So my understanding, and maybe we can get Michael Snell on to talk about this or someone else at The Hill to explain it to us, It seems to me that it was a procedural reason that the Democrats were united in voting against it. And in fact, some of them do support the reauthorization of FISA. Now, many others don't for the same
Right, but does that mean that the Republican
majority... But I'm not trying to say
majority...
Democrats or Republicans are better. And,
Right, but does that mean that the Republican majority minus these 19 are supportive of FISA 702?
They are, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's not... The bottom line is there are not enough members of Congress who are listening to the people and expressing the skepticism of this kind of government spying that so many Americans, regardless of their other ideological convictions, feel about this kind of thing.
Yeah, and you heard Tucker Carlson's warning that there will be another effort, that this isn't, in fact, dead. Interesting to see him really picking up on this story and doubling down on it for his large audience.
Well, that does it for us today on Rising. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow, the Fridays team will be back in the chair, but we will see you next week.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Bye-bye.